So this video will show you 10 examples of solving one-step equations. Remember, if you have questions, you can post those questions on Schoology in the comment section, and fellow students or myself will answer those questions and get you through the homework. Okay, example 1. Negative 1/3 n equals negative 6. So in order to solve equations, you have to understand inverse operations. So the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So we have these three ideas. We have multiplication, which undoes division, and vice versa. Addition, which undoes subtraction, and vice versa. So a simple idea would be, if I have some number, let's say $13, and I add $4 to it, and I take away $4, the net effect of adding 4 and subtracting 4 is 0 because they're inverse operations from each other. The same thing is true with multiplication and division. If I have some number, let's say 10, and I triple it, now I have 30. If I divide by 3 again, now I have 10. So there's been a net change of nothing from 10 to 10. So over here, we have negative 1/2. We're multiplying by negative 1/3. I said that wrong. So that means we need to divide by negative 1/3, which means we multiply by the reciprocal. So we'll do it this way first, and then we'll do it a second way. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal. Three divided by 3 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. 1 times n is just n. So we've isolated n. The two negatives become a positive. Then over here, I make negative 6 into a fraction by putting it over 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 6 times negative 3 is positive 18. 18 divided by 1 is just 18. And we have answered our first question. Second question. We are adding 14 to n. This is a positive 14. We're adding a positive 14. What's the inverse of adding 14? Subtracting 14. So if I subtract 14 from this equation, and I subtract 14 over here, so we've got a positive 7, a negative 14. 14 minus 14 is 0. So the net change there is 0. And n equals negative 14 plus 17. We can commute those so that it's 17 minus 14. Our answer is 3. Example 3. We're dividing by 9. What's the inverse of division? Multiplication. So if I multiply by 9 on both sides, so over here with the fractions, this can be written as 9 over 1. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So we have 1 over 1, which is 1. 1 times x is just x. So x equals negative 6 times 9. Negative 6 times 9 is negative 54. Example 4. We're subtracting 7. What's the inverse of subtraction? Addition. If we add 7 on both sides, negative 7 plus 7, which we can commute and write as 7 minus 7, just by commuting these, that's 0. So again, the net effect here with inverse operations gives us 0. And p equals 7 plus 7, which is 14. In question 5, we're multiplying. What's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So I'm going to divide by 20. Divide by 20. 20 divided by 20 is 1. So we have 1 times k, which is the same thing as just k. So 20 divided by 20 is just 1, which leaves us with just k. We'll have 1k. And then 380 divided by 20, well, I can simplify that by factoring out the 10 in each of these. So rather than 380 divided by 20, now I have negative 38 divided by 2, which I can do a little bit easier, and I can say, well, I know that that's going to be negative 19. Example 6. Again, there's division going on, but this is different than previous division problems we've had, because n is not being divided by 75. 75 is being divided by n. So our first goal is to get n out of the denominator. And we do that by multiplying both sides by n. So n divided by n is just going to be 1. So we have 75 equals 15n. Now we can divide by 15 because we're multiplying. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we're multiplying by 15, we go ahead and divide by 15, and we get 75 divided by 15, which is 5. Example 7. This is our 7th question. What operation is happening to x? What's happening to x? It's being multiplied by 10. What's the inverse operation of multiplication? It's division. So what are we going to divide by? We're going to divide by the same number multiplying by, which is 10. So now I have 10 divided by 10, which is 1. So I just have x. I have negative 80 over 10 equals x, which is the same thing as negative 8 divided by 1, which is negative 8. So negative 8 equals x. Example 8. What's happening to n? We're subtracting 9 from n, so we need to add 9. That's the inverse operation of subtraction. We add 9 to both sides. This is 0, so n equals 9 plus 3, which is 12. N equals 12. Example 9. What's happening to v? It's being multiplied. It's being multiplied by negative 11. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we divide by 11. So v equals 66 divided by negative 11. What is 66 divided by negative 11? That's negative 6. V equals negative 6. Now we have negative 75 times 1 over r equals 15. Again, unique problem because we have to multiply by the reciprocal on r first. So because r is in the denominator, we can't solve for it in the denominator. We need it in the numerator. We're going to begin by multiplying by the reciprocal. Again, that's the same thing as division when you're doing fractions. When you divide a fraction, you're actually multiplying by the reciprocal. So r divided by r is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. And anything times 1 is just that self. So we still have negative 75 over here. Negative 75 equals 15 times r divided by 1. So negative 75 equals 15r. And when we divide by 1, it just stays 15r. So we'll just leave it as 15r. Now we can divide by 15 because that's an operation happening to r. And negative 75 divided by 15 is going to be negative 5. Again, questions you have, you can post on Schoology on the comment section, and other classmates or myself can come and answer those. Good luck.